Hello, you amazing people out there, and welcome to the Amazing Action Comics podcast, where we are all about independent comics. I'm one of your hosts, Angel, with John
How's it
Pepe.
going, Angel?
Ooh, well, it's Monday.
It is.
It's another Monday. It's all good. I guess there were a couple of things that we were talking about before we got online. One is this damn rain. There's no rain.
No rain.
It was no rain
Really?
for like 40 days.
Mhm.
And then we got like a day, but it was like maybe an inch, if that much.
It's like
And then
spitting.
now we're going another 2 weeks before we get some rain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm driving home and I'm looking at all these signs that say, I guess not fire warnings, but
Red flag warning
limitations.
or something like that. Yeah.
No, but limitations of what you can do. So like people can't use their fireplaces or fire pits,
Right.
depending on
Right.
what town you're in. So you have to go with whatever your
They
town codes are.
They haven't done full on water restrictions yet for us here, but yeah, it's pretty bad right now.
No, that'd be super scary
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So, but you know what really burns a lot? Paper.
Oh.
You know what you use paper for to make comics. You know where you get comics from? Your comic store. Only when they send them though. So the other thing that we were talking about. All right. So for those of you guys that don't know, I left a little while ago in regards to like actually being physically in the store. So I do mostly the online present stuff. So we have online website. People can purchase comics. They come pick it up at the store, and they see John at the store to pick up their comics. So a while back, and it's been some time now. We people were like forever that it wasn't going to last, but it's lasted. You had a division in the distribution chain where Diamond sort of had like the monopoly, but they weren't considered a monopoly because Barnes and Nobles and all these other stores are considered bookstores. So they weren't considered a monopoly, even though you can only get comics through Diamond, not through anybody else. Long story short, you got Lunar. They came out of it and they distribute now DC Image exclusively, along with other smaller distributors. And then you have PRH, which is Penguin Random House, who distributes Marvel, I believe IDW, and they bought out Boom as well, right?
I believe,
Yeah. So you have, and Diamond's still around. So, but Diamond is sort of like a wholesale retailer. So they get their comics through one of those two. If you're a store that's used to just going through Diamond, then you'll pay probably a little bit more in regards to getting to your comics because it's going through the third party medicines. The only reason why you would do it is because you're used to their system, and you can get everything through them, almost everything through them now. You still can't. I don't know if you get DC through Diamond. I don't think you can, right? I think you can only get
you're
through
right that
Luna.
it is exclusive to Lunar, like you said before. Yeah.
Yeah, so only certain things are exclusive to them, but they're still around. And there's still enough publishers, and they're still doing toys and they're still doing their gaming stuff. So they do have business. The big news that came from Diamond was that they were closing down their Plattsburgh facility, which is a facility that's closer to the Canadian border.
And it was
So that
one of their bigger
right distribution centers, and basically most like the large chains of publishers print their books in Canada, and really near the border. So it was really easy for them to print, send right to the distribution center or the warehouse, and then for there, Diamond would just go ahead and distribute through there. But since this shakeup with having these other distributors come in, Diamond has had less and less, I guess, need for that Asperg. I'm not sure how big that facility is. I'm pretty sure it's huge, especially because they were dealing with the whole of US, and I believe they have a UK market as well. I'm not sure how big it is, but yeah, I mean they closed that distribution center. They have the other one that's in Olive Branch, Mississippi. So in their transition, I guess things went sort of awry. So as I was uploading the file this week, we were all good, checking it over, everything's fine. Everything was invoiced, going through it with the owners. Okay, Sunday everything goes live. Everybody's ordering their stuff. I got a message from one of the owners saying that yeah, all of these books, 8 boxes of books are coming in that weren't invoiced, which is crazy. So there wasn't enough time and there wasn't enough info, I guess, on to get from the invoice to be able to get those up online. So we actually had to, I think Len substituted it with a list of what was going to be available. but not available to order online. So yeah, it's been sort of like a mini clusterfuck over there ever since things have been excuse me, not going their way
Yeah. I mean,
for a bit.
we've talked about the distribution system a little bit on the show. I don't think it's any secret that we're not big fans of Diamond for a few reasons. I think it's something to be said of being too big, right, and being the only game in town, and a lot of things they had let slip. Quality control, high ratio of damaged books, and high ratio of damage books, right? Those ratio variants that are expensive, and you put up for that 1 for 100, and that comes in and it's damaged, because they didn't pack it properly. And these other companies like Lunar, like Penguin Random House, have come up with newer, better ways of making sure that books, don't get as damaged during shipping. And so that's one of them. And Diamond also always had weird invoicing issues as well too. So it just seems like in this transition, it was like books came from the printer in Canada, like you said, they hit Plattsburgh, and then when they normally would have gone out to the stores from Plattsburgh with paperwork invoicing, they were just sent to Mississippi to then be sent to the stores with no invoicing or paperwork in that moment. So yeah, it was not a shining moment for Diamond.
But the books got there though, yes?
The books did get there, and yeah, I mean, it was definitely a decent amount of titles that people couldn't order online, but you know what? I mean, that's what Wednesday's all about, right? Come to your shop on Wednesday, walk the wall, get the books that you want.
I remember those days. So the days of, Wizard Magazine, you get some kind of like info on what was coming out, but not, I mean, dates always change and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
But I used to love walking in every single week, not knowing what was going to be on the wall.
Yeah.
Which was fantastic. I missed that. And now you can't freaking open up anything without seeing something about what's coming out or ruining it for you.
Now people know too much, Angel. And it's like you always get that guy on a Saturday or Sunday and be like, this book was the publisher's website said this book came out on Wednesday. Where is it? It's like it didn't ship, man.
Oh, those are the best.
No book is confirmed until the band is on stage playing. Like,
yes.
Sometimes books will miss ship dates. So
the best ones are the ones that bring in the sheet that has the date on it. I was like, publishers don't miss freaking dates.
Yeah, and then publishers don't update their websites if a book ships late too, and that's frustrating. And then other websites follow suit. So other fan sites will be like, yeah, that book was supposed to be there on Wednesday. It's out on Wednesday. How come you didn't get it? It's like because it didn't ship and you didn't update your darn website.
Yes.
That's why the jokerstyle.com website, even if you can't order those books, is a very accurate and up-to-date website. And that is why I always tell people that is such a great website to go to see.
Absolutely. Every Sunday morning at 8 a.m., you will absolutely know what is coming out for that week. Not maybe, but what we have in stock. Because that stuff has been received.
Unless Diamond shorted your entire quantities for a book that, yes, was supposed to be out that day, but Diamond forgot to put them in the box. Because that's also things that happen.
That's also things that happen. Yeah. So thank you, Diamond, for a very wonderful weekend.
Here's to another 25 days of service to the industry, you shining piece of coal.
It's all good. All right, gang.
We kid because we love you, Steve Jeppy.
Yes. Welcome to another episode of the Indie Comic Review. This is episode 142, and we've got books from November 13th of the year 2024, our Lord's year.
Angel. What? I just, you talked about the Christopher Reeve /fan documentary last week, and we got a nice conversation about Christopher Reeve. I didn't get a chance to watch that this week, but I did go back, Angel, really quickly. I did go back and watch Superman 2: The Donner Cut. Have you ever seen the Donner Cut?
I want to say yes, but I'm going to say no.
I got problems with it, man. There's so much I love with it. There's a lot of really cool things that are even better than the theatrical version. But there's just one little thing that I want to nitpick about it, because it just, again, Christopher Reeve just always sells everything that he did, that he was. It still works. It's still believable. But oh my God, this was like so ridiculous. So, famously, Superman 1 ends with him going back in time, right?
Correct.
right? To save
Well,
life.
not going back in time, reversing time.
That is a visual representation of time travel. He actually is breaking the time barrier. He is not turning the planet backwards. I always have to stress that. That's a whole nother conversation that we will
The
have to have.
planet was going backwards.
It's a visual representation. It's like when they translate, like AJ always likes to talk about for Star Wars. They're all speaking Aurebesh, but they translate it to English for our convenience. So
Yeah, but there's a difference between language translation and then time displacement and time travel. He didn't travel. He actually reversed time.
well, yeah, I mean, so yes, he reverses time. It still doesn't work. I understand, because yeah, it's because in the comics he breaks the time barrier, and in the comics they always show like the years going backwards as he's going through the time barrier. And I always thought that so yeah, it makes it look like he's spinning the Earth in the other direction,
Right.
which and then yes, rolling back the clock.
Wait, but then you're negating everything else, like the bricks going back onto the wall, like the car coming out of the hole, and the hole uncollapsing itself.
I think if you're traveling through time like Superman does, that's how it looks to you. It looks like time is going backwards, so you could go back to that spot where you want to be, whereas other Superman is still saving people, and you're there.
So, for argument's sake, reversing time and time travel are the same thing.
Sure, why not?
Okay, go ahead.
They look that ending is a mess, and I do because I love the movie. I've had to reconcile that for over 40 years. That ending. Here's the thing, that was not the original ending for that movie. The original ending for that movie is one of the rockets, he goes out, and then boom, it breaks open the flying record album cover with the Phantom Zone criminals. They break free. You would see that at the end of the original version of Superman 1 as Donner.
Oh, really?
Do it, yeah.
Huh.
So they fold that into the beginning of the Donner cut. The time travel bit still happens, or the reversing of time bit still happens, but it happens at the end of Superman 2 in the Donner cut. So in the Donner cut, if you watch it, or as originally conceived, things are so bad at the end of Superman 2 that the only way he could defeat the Phantom Zone criminals is to basically go back in time and make sure none of this ever happened. So you watch the whole movie, and then none of it ever happened. Okay, which is such a narrative cheat that I don't like it. I reject it. At least at the end of Superman 1, it's only 5 minutes that are that get changed through time. Yes. Maybe whatever, yes. Reverse, whatever. So so right there, I don't like it. What's even worse, but is laughably bad, is the whole thing where he gives up his powers to be with Lois, and then they go to the diner and he gets his ass kicked by the guy. That happens, right? And then Donner still puts in the part where he comes back to the diner and, kicks that guy's ass in return, puts him in the pinball machine. I've been working out. Great moment. Great Christopher Reeve moment. That still happens in the Donner cut, except that happens after Superman has already reversed time back to the beginning of the movie.
So he kicks somebody's ass that doesn't know who he is.
This guy, who's a jerk to begin with, this guy definitely deserved what he had coming to him, regardless of whether he may or may not have met this guy before and kicked his ass. He's sitting there eating in the diner, and this guy he's never seen before walks in and just throws it into a pinball machine.
No, he's a jerk.
Everybody else is cool with it.
Wait, did the guy recognize him?
Yeah, it still plays out.
Okay.
Same. So again,
even though it's not supposed to.
Yeah. So that is something that I had to rewatch it because I was like, is it really like that? Is it really that bad? And it's like, oh, it's so bad. But I mean, the Donner cut, there's still a lot of great things. Superman 2 theatrical version is still so much fun. One of the things the Donner cut does is he didn't want to use anything Richard Lester used, so all the comedy bits are gone in the Donner cut. So it's a little more serious of an affair.
Right.
But yeah, that just cracks me up every time.
So I'm going to say no. I have not seen the Donner cut.
Now you have to, because it's great that even if he reverses time, he's like, no, I got to get that guy.
No, what I want to know is, was there always a plan for Superman 2?
Yeah, because so they were. I don't know if it's covered in the documentary, but they were filming 1 and 2 at the same time.
Oh, really? No, it wasn't.
And basically, Donner was always butting heads with the producers, the Salkinds, and they basically were like, look, we want you to stop shooting anything for Superman 2. We want you to you have enough for 1. We want you to just finish 1, do what you have to do, and we're going to get the guy who did the Three Musketeers and the Hard Day's Night to come and finish Superman 2. And so it was like SAG director rules was that, like, in order to get credit for directing a movie, you have to do over 50%, even if it's like 51%. So Richard Lester comes in, shoots over 50%, and uses the other of what Donner has done. So Donner was like, okay, fine, my original conceived ending. And this is why I think the Donner cut, there's like that little weird thing with him beating the guy up after he reverses time, is because they weren't really thinking about it because they never had a chance to actually finish it, right? So they just said, okay, we're going to take all the time travel stuff, we're going to put that at the end of the first movie, because because narratively it does work in that movie where he's like told, you can't do this, and he's like, I'm going to do this because I love this human woman, and so I think that's that really does narratively work for that moment a lot better than it winds up in the Donner.
So that same sequence was supposed to be in 2 at the end.
The reversal of time was supposed to be at the end of what would have been Superman 2,
but then it would have added all the other stuff with like a General Zod.
Yeah, but then he reverses time and it never happens. So it's So it actually wound up, I think, working.
So him fighting General Zod and all that stuff would have never happened.
Well, it would have happened, but then it would never have happened.
No, there's no way. I would have not. I would have wrote into somebody.
Kid, right? Like, you just like, what did you just do?
And then that's the whole freaking Dallas thing, isn't it?
It really very much is. Yeah.
Fuck that.
Yeah.
No, if that ever happens again in anything and somebody uses it, fuck them to all hell.
Well, you know what? It can be done well, because I don't want to spoil the ending of one of my favorite miniseries from last year, Pine to Merrimack. There's a little bit of a sleight of hand, a little time travel sleight of hand, but the character who winds up going back actually realizes that she's stuck now in this repeating what happened. And it's something like that where it becomes a living hell for a character. I think that's great.
Yeah.
But where a guy can, where Superman can just go back and just beat people up because they wronged him in a timeline that they don't even remember anymore, doesn't work for me.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think there's clever ways of doing it. So with Marvel having all of its, ups and downs with the movies, and this Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Did you see it?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so no, is that where it's at? No, it's not that one. Sorry, excuse me. It's the last Spider-Man movie. No, which is Doctor Strange, right?
Well, Doctor Strange was in the last Spider-Man movie, yes.
No, the last. Yeah, okay, so yes. He's in the last Spider-Man movie. I'm getting my movies mixed up. But they do it where you're on the journey with the character that's having everything reset around him.
Right.
So there is sort of a reset of everybody's memory, because nobody knows who he is at the very end of that. But you're in on it. It's not like you're, behind the curtain or whatever, or in front of the curtain watching the show.
Sorry, my cat turned on the television.
Nice. The cat is smart.
Yeah, or how they kind of did it in Endgame, where it's the rules of time travel, or when you travel back in time, you create a variant timeline.
Right.
And then they picked that thread up for Loki, and they that was done really well in that. So I think that's, as much as I don't like that concept of time travel, that is a little easier to accept too.
But it's better than sitting there for 2.5 hours and at the very end of the movie say, none of it happened.
Oh yeah. It's
Fuck
none of it happened. And then again, your hero is going to go beat somebody up for no reason at all.
For shits and giggles.
Just for a slight that only he remembers. Yeah.
Okay.
Good stuff. That's right. So that's right. Because it was because Lois found out that he was Superman. That's the real reason why he turns back time at the end of the Donner cut, Superman 2.
Oh, because she finds out.
Instead of the magic kiss. Which, and again, I think making the best of what you have, yes, while Lester's version also has some flaws, thematically and emotionally, that kiss is such a great character moment for Chris Reeve, because he knows what he has to do, and his one chance at happiness and not having to lie to this woman who he said, I don't lie to you. You know, that moment is great, where he's all Superman, he gives her the kiss, and then she's all like, and he's all like, oh, what do you need? What do you need? Orange juice? Let me get you orange. You know, like, again, great acting from a guy who was just taken from us way too soon.
Oh man! All right. Well, I'm glad you got to watch that. So I definitely know what I'm not watching.
It's cool. There's some Brando. They use Brando. They recreate some Brando footage.
Oh,
There's
really?
some neat stuff. The reveal of how Lois figures out Clark is Superman is a lot better than him sticking his hand in the fire.
Yeah,
a little more.
I like dramatic. That though. All right, gang. So moving on from Superman. Yes. So episode 142. We've got 3 for you this week. John and I both read one of the same, and then we have one apiece. So again, these are books from 1113. So I think we're just gonna dive right into it. So why don't you go first?
All right.
We'll rock and roll.
Yeah. So this is another new one from Oni Press. They've just been, again, Oni, I can't stress how much they've been knocking out of the park. It's like it's over 20 years ago when they were one of the best, like, just coolest indie companies out there. They've just been doing some great stuff. So this is called Calavera PI. And I opted for this really noirish variant cover. I don't know if you can see exactly what's going on there. I love it. I just think there's something really cool about this cover. I dig this. And the main cover was the background was the old Hollywood Hills with the old Hollywood Land sign, right? And in front was this guy, you know, this guy in a you know, he's wearing the fedora, he's got the trench coat on, and yeah, he's smoking a cigarette, but he's also a skeleton man.
Nice.
And so I'm in right there. Just visually, I am in on that. So yeah, that was cool. That was the main cover, but I like this one a lot too. Just I like the reds and the black and the white. It just really popped for me. I like the old marquee thing here. So this is written, illustrated, and colored by Marco Finnegan, lettered by Jeff Eckelberry. Marco Finnegan did this cover, or the main cover. The variant cover that I just showed you was by Ramon K. Perez. Edited by Gabriel Granillo, and designed by Winston Gambro. And so this is really neat, because one of the things I really like about this is it's really cool, kind of like golden age art style.
Yeah, right? I like that.
And the paper is like slightly brown. There's like sort of like a little sepia tone on it. So this takes place in Hollywood in 1925 on Halloween. And basically you are following this private investigator on one of his cases. And this guy's great because not only is he a two-fisted fighter, but he's also a master of disguise. So I don't sort of want to spoil like his reveal any more than I think I might have already done with the image that I showed, you know, where he is introduced. But it's a really cool bit. Really sells the character very well. One of the things I dig about this guy is we've talked a lot, Angel, about how a lot of times we find new comics are written to be optioned for film or television, right? So, and a lot of times you can tell when somebody's casting somebody in their book. Now, I don't know if Marco Finnegan intended this, but I got real Pedro Pascal vibes from this guy, right?
Yeah.
Calavera PI. And this would be a great vehicle for Pedro Pascal, because I think Pedro Pascal, as great as he is, feel like he doesn't want to do a lot of work based on The Mandalorian. And so this would be really cool because you have Calavera, you know, remember this guy, right?
Yep.
Small guy. So that's Calavera, right? But in the first issue, he's a human. And you see how he basically becomes this guy. But you don't know the wheres and you don't know the why, right? So, so again, it Halloween, and then the Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, which comes right after Halloween. Mexican culture, figures heavily into this, which is really cool because it reminded me a lot of the Zorro book that Gordon Murphy just did. where culture acts, that background acts as a great uh, framework for the story that you're trying to tell, and feeds into the characters, organically. And so I thought that was really cool because there's a lot of points where they'll be speaking in Spanish and they're not translating it for you, and it just gives it an authenticity. I really like that in a moment where a character is speaking English, but in that moment of stress or anxiety or action, they have an exclamation in there in a different language. I think is always cool because it really kind of lets you get inside that character's head, that they're not that everything is happening instinctually. So I thought that was really cool. The supporting character is a female investigative reporter. Again, very hard for someone to do in 1925. So she has a lot of uphill battles as well. But their relationship, their interplay is really, really cool. So what I really loved about it, because it takes place in 1925, and again, because the art is fairly rough and simplistic, but everything is deliberate, right? It reminds me a lot of Golden Age comics, a lot of, especially the first appearances of characters like the Spectre, for one, like really reminds me of that very first Spectre story in 1941, right? Where you meet Jim Corrigan, you get a sense of who he is, and then you see what his mission is going to be going forward in this new form due to supernatural machinations. So I thought that was really cool. It really captured that vibe of Golden Age comics, and origin stories. So yeah, and then you get also, I always love a little back matter. So you get a newspaper excerpt there, the action that you just saw. So it gives it more context. I love the art. I love the coloring. I love the Golden Age feel and style of this. I love the questions that are raised, the pacing and the tension. And I really, really want to see where this goes next. So Calavera PI, if you like really cool noir, Golden Age, classic type comics, this one's great.
Nice. All right, check it out. Only Press. I haven't read anything from them in a while.
Yeah.
Wasn't that little the little devil guys? Not devil guys, but
Dwellings.
Dwellings, yes.
Straight Jay Stevens straight up horror in the cartoon style. Yeah. The Casper type style. Yeah, that's great. Jill and the Killers was a good mini from them recently.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Couple others. Yeah, no, they've really. Oh, they're also doing the Nacellverse stuff.
That's right.
Nacellverse stuff. Okay. So so I really like that. Oni had kind of shrunken their output and really was just reprinting, multiple reprints of the Scott Pilgrim trades for, it seems like, a few years there. Yes. And of course it is the 20th anniversary of Scott Pilgrim. So yeah, they there's still that in the pike for Oni.
Is it?
You get to add. I think I've talked about this after Comic-Con. The 20th anniversary box set are like Xbox boxes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's pretty cool.
And so that's still, they know where their bread is buttered, but I love that their output has just increased like tenfold in the last couple of years, and I'm really glad to see them back.
Oh, that's good. Okay. All right, maybe they'll tickle my fancy soon. All right, I'm up. So what do we got for you? We've got a publisher we've been speaking about for a while, Dark Horse Comics. We've got Arcbound. Crazy. So I'm reading. Oh, before I even get into it, so the first thing I notice are the creative team, right? And I go, Tom Hardy. I'm like, it can't be the same Tom Hardy. It's the same freaking Tom Hardy.
Of course.
So he's getting a writing credit on this, or character development, I guess. But being written by Scott Snyder and Frank Thierry. And Scott's been on a roll because he's been doing stuff for small publishers as well as the big two as well. So it was something that I read. I think it was a post that he made because people were speculating that Absolute Batman was sort of like this one-off where it's going to be just a 5-issue miniseries and then done. He's like, nope, this is an ongoing series, and as long as you guys keep reading it, they're slated for a couple years worth of this series. So really good stuff. So I'm really excited about that. It'll be, I guess, another Court of Owls kind of situation, which would be cool. So Scott Snyder, Frank Thierry, with character development by Tom Hardy, which is kind of scary because I wouldn't want to talk to him on the phone about characters. He's just a scary dude to me. Art by Ryan Smallman, yep. Colors by Frank William and letters by Buddy Baudouin. And what was really crazy is like all the covers are by artists, like artists that we know. So cover A is by Ryan Smallman, cover B, Dan Panosian, cover C, Clay Mann, cover D, Tyler Kirkman, cover E, Rose Besh, and then F, Ryan Otley. So all like top line artists that are just, hired for these covers. That's probably because they wanted to do something for Tom Hardy or Scott Snyder, one or the other. Artbound. So basically your main characters are right there. Guy right in the front is Kai, and then you got to his right, left, whatever it is his soldier buddy Xander. And then you've got some stuff going on up there. I haven't met that dude yet. But interesting. So there's a lot that's going on in this book. So basically it's a dystopian future where Earth is already barren. They've taken to the stars and they've colonized all these different planets. And when I say they, I just mean humans. And basically what you're opening up with, I have to show you because it's pretty gruesome and awesome at the same time. You've got sort of like this. I'm going the wrong way. This way. There you go. See that body hanging there? And then you got some doctor like diving his hands or digging his hands into a half corpse. So you open up with basically this doctor giving a spiel on what humanity is. And then right after this page is done, that hanging corpse that you see later on again. But you go back in time days earlier of what's going on. And basically what you have is two soldiers within this faction, Xander and Kai, who are fighting. They're not called the Empire, but they're a human faction that are trying to drill this specific ore. I forgot what they call it. I think it's corium or something like that. Some umium or adamantium or something like that from planets. And the planets have already been colonized by other humans. And basically what they're doing is they're giving them the option to surrender or die. And so they're running onto these planets. They're killing a bunch of people until the actual planet surrenders. And then whatever's left over as far as the population, they take them and they throw them into these arcs. They're like mechanical suits that are embedded into their body. So Artbound is where you get the title from. And so they become these half cybernetic slaves, and they just have to dig out all of this material for, they're called mediators. And the colonists are called colonists that are on the colonies. And so you see it in the first couple of pages where they're just diving down and they're just like hacking and slashing and just shooting up everybody. The art I thought was pretty cool because it's not traditional anatomy. And when I say traditional anatomy, I mean everybody has arms and legs and heads, but everything's sort of elongated. So it's not anime style. It's just everybody's just longer limbs, and it almost seems like almost every single panel is foreshortened in some sense. So like the characters are coming out towards you in a 3-dimensional on a 2D paper, which I thought was pretty cool. The color's great, like the breaking of arms and stuff like that, just like snap, just kind of gruesome, which is really cool. So you have them taking out these guys, and then they realize that they're being overwhelmed by the people up there. But this guy, Kai, who's the main protagonist, is like, no, we can handle it. We don't need to call in the third guy who just comes in. His name is War. Smashes down to the ground, huge as shit, and then just starts chopping everybody to pieces all by himself, which is fantastic. And Kai's like, oh, we didn't have to call him. It's just going to be unnecessary. And then you just have this huge blood splatter at the end. Beats the planet to submission, basically. You kill enough of the population, they're going to say, yeah, we're being overwhelmed. Fuck it. And then that planet's been taken over. Then basically you have them going back up to headquarters, and they're being reissued almost immediately because they're getting orders from above saying that we got to go drill some more on this planet. And so basically you have one soldier, Kai, who's like struggling with what's going on in all of this. Like, why isn't anybody negotiating whether or not these guys will actually surrender on their own? And they're being told that all that stuff is happening. We come to find out that it's not. And so later on that night, he gets a message. It's encrypted. And while he's having it decrypted, they're being deployed the next morning. You find out that the message is saying that they actually did try to surrender. And so without giving up too much away, something happens really, really bad as far as betrayal goes. and then we get to the end where you get to the very beginning of where you started, which was that hanging body, and that hanging body turns into an arc. I'm not going to tell you who it is. It's got a lot in it. I'm intrigued. It's a 12-issue maxi series, so I think I'm going to be in it for at least a couple more issues. I want to see where it goes. Like I told you before, for me, a lot of the times it's going to be sort of like the emotional attachment to the characters, like what's the motivation of each one of the characters. And so I think there wasn't enough time spent in Kai's struggle with what he's doing to make it a little bit more relatable. Because there was so much in the issue, and it's a first issue, and we know Scott likes to write. So there's a lot being said in here, and a lot of really good information in regards to who they are, why they're doing what they're doing. But yeah, I think that sort of like humanizing, if you're talking about humans in the very beginning, in this particular book, was missing for me just a little bit more. And with Scott, sometimes it's just the long play of the book, and we know we have 12 issues to get everything out, so I'm hoping we get a little bit more backstory, especially on Kai. And we know that Xander in this first issue is a dick, but pretty cool. If you like dystopian stuff, future sci-fi stuff, this is right up your alley. Dark Horse has been putting out some really good stuff. It's a hit or miss when you have sort of like Hollywood stars that are trying to, do some writing. We had, what did we have? We had
Berserker with Keanu Reeves comes.
Yeah, Berserker with Keanu Reeves, yes. What about the other one, Minor Little Threats, with the actor comedian?
Brian Posehn and Patton Oswalt is doing.
Yes, Patton Oswalt.
Brian Posehn's doing Grommets, and other stuff.
And then what's his face that just did the Riddler?
Did Paul Dano, the ever punchable Paul Dano. Yeah. It's funny. I had an awareness that Tom Hardy was working on a project, a comic project. And yeah, definitely thought, the Berserker Keanu Reeves success, I think definitely informed some of that. Tom Hardy, I know, does like comic books, has played, a couple, Tiny Bane and Slimy Venom. He's done some really outstanding roles, and even in non-genre stuff. There was a series he developed, live action series called Taboo that he developed and so based on that, I was like, okay, Tom Hardy coming up with a plot is I think it's going to be a very dense and really going to need at least one writer to help untie this knot. And then when the book came out and I saw that it was actually two writers that he needed to help, tell this story, I thought it was good. Well, at least you're in good hands, because Scott Snyder has been doing some great stuff in the 3 years he hasn't been doing capes, but of course his mainstream comic stuff is great too.
Yes, and
Frank Thierry is always a really good, reliable writer as well. So he's in good company there. I like the kinetic energy and the art, and that it was very heavy on action. The one thing that I did notice on the covers, especially the Dan Panosian variant cover.
Right.
So Berserker, Keanu Reeves develops it. They go out of their way to draw the character.
I know exactly what you're going to say. Yes.
Why then? And I know that Tom Hardy has had that mustachioed look, but why does, especially on the Panosian cover, why does it look like Henry Cavill from Mission Impossible?
Oh, I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, I can see that a little bit. But I could also see a little bit of Tom Hardy.
I could see, especially on the main cover.
So here's the deal, right? So you have these guys, and we know now Berserker's being optioned, and it's going to be a movie. It's going to be an animation, and I have nothing against that.
No.
When you're doing comics with the intent of it being another medium, then sometimes you can read that medium as something else, as almost like a script. Or a treatment for something bigger than what you're reading, as opposed to having a genuine comic in your hand that was made to be a story to be told through that particular medium. Yeah. If the fruits bear other things from that medium, then that's cool. Yeah. But sometimes, and this, look at Mark Millar. All he does now is just write stuff so that it eventually becomes a Netflix thing or somewhere out there. Not to take anything away from him, fantastic writer. But if you want a comic that's like a comic, it's probably not going to be that. It's
Mhm.
because that's going to be a treatment for something that you're probably going to see on the screen. And maybe that's where, there's a place for everything in that respect. So
Yeah.
it's not me digging on that. It's just
No,
knowing
no,
what
no.
it is.
Yeah, I just
Um,
honestly like so I make that joke about it looking like Cavill, but no, I think it really does speak to the chameleon-esque ability of Tom Hardy as an actor, because he really does. He almost goes out of his way to look different in almost
mm,
everything he does, right?
mhm,
And so yeah. Whereas Keanu at this point has a stock trademark
right.
look, So no, I think that was really cool that it's like, yeah, it looks like Tom Hardy, but it doesn't look like Tom Hardy. But again, that's Tom Hardy's sort of
Yes, alter
go-to.
ego.
Yeah.
But here's so this is my thinking, right? If DC and Marvel weren't super successful in the movie making business, would these books exist? Would we have gotten a Berserker, an Arcbound?
I think that so you're looking at like Tom Hardy specifically being in Dark Knight Rises, leading to I honestly
No,
because
no, no. I'm thinking about those universes being successful.
oh, okay.
Saying Warner Brothers and Disney having success in the movie making business when it comes to superhero or comic book related stuff.
Would
Would these books, would Berserker, exist? Would Arcbound exist? With the intent of what it's supposed to become, right? Either
right.
so would there be interest in that? So
Yeah.
even though Tom Hardy has read comic books and stuff like that, probably Keanu as well. These guys could be, really avid comic book readers, but maybe would have never thought about doing something unless there was a success
Right.
of the
Right.
big two.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at.
I can see why these actors wouldn't necessarily want to bring these ideas to the big two,
Right.
for right creative control and
Well,
holding on to that IP is
not just for the big two, but just not being the place or being accepted at all, because we're 10, 15 years into Iron Man walking the screen, and let's
right.
just say Iron Man set the precedence. Even though we had X-Men before that, we had what did we have? We had Blade before that. We had all these different comic book movies, but none of them were at the precipice of or that turning point where it became mainstream.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because I know that other actors have lent their names and story ideas to comics in the past. I know Leonard Nimoy, William Shatner, Bill Mumy, right? Like a lot of those old '60s sci-fi stars have
Right.
gravitated towards that. But yeah, the interest that mainstream actors who don't need a comic book movie to make their career are gravitating towards doing this stuff too. So yeah, it's interesting. It is interesting that I think the sea change in 2008 between Iron Man and the Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Really, yeah. I think you got a point. Has made these sort of, I don't want to say vanity projects, but these name projects happen.
They can be vanity projects, or they could just be projects that were there that now they feel they can come out with because it's part of mainstream.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a double-edged sword. One, it's a vain thing. You know what? You got comic book stuff. Let me hop onto that bandwagon. Or this is something that I was really passionate about, afraid to put out there because we didn't know what people were going to think. But now that there is sort of like this mainstream acknowledgement of these types of movies, then the ideas that I've had all along, I can put out there.
Yeah, that's the thing. So that's the other thing. I'd like to know, like,
what the intent?
Yeah, is Arcbound something that Tom Hardy had in his head for years and was like, okay, now I'm in a place where I can bring this? Was that the same with like was Keanu thinking of Berserker when he was doing Bill and Ted? Like this idea of like an immortal guy going through time, and then now I'm doing John Wick, and like now the idea comes together, and then does Keanu say, hey, Matt Kinn, I have an idea, or is somebody, hey, Tom Hardy, do you have, can you come up with something? I'd love to know, it's a chicken and the egg thing.
Right.
How long has Tom Hardy been thinking about this?
Listen,
is this something he was thinking about as a 13-year-old, like?
Exactly. So what we need, if you're listening out there in the world of social media and all, is anybody who does sort of like these documentaries on the comics and stuff like that. What was the intent behind?
Well,
How long were these stories in these guys' heads before they took them down to paper or
Well,
actually brought them to life.
we love having creators on to talk about their creations. So Tom Hardy, Keanu, Scott, Matt Kinn, Patton Oswalt. Well, any of you guys, come on the show.
No, not Patton Oswalt, because I can't laugh for that long. He's just gonna make me laugh for like an hour, and I can't. I won't be able to get through any questions. But yes, no, Patton Oswalt, absolutely. Yeah, any one of you guys just coming on. I'd love to really know if this was a passion project, if this was something like he had when he was like 16, 17, 18, and really wanted to get it out there. That'd be really cool. I mean, the concept is great. So I know we got off tangent here, but Arcbound from Dark Horse Comics. I'm in it for a little bit. I want to see where it goes. It's always interesting when you have someone who's established as a different medium. So you got Tom Hardy in conjunction with, and you got some talent that he's working with. I mean, you got Scott Snyder, Frank Thierry doing this, and some really great, a solid creative team. So it's just a matter of whether or not the story is going to stick all the way through. And knowing Scott, it's going to be really well written. The art is great and the coloring is great. The pacing has been, phenomenal so far. So it's going to be interesting to see where the twists and turns are. I just hope it doesn't go awry too much, because there's, when I read Arcbound and found out what the arcs are, and it made sense at the very end to me why it's called what it is. I like to go into that other part of the world as well, which I'm pretty sure is going to happen, but it's just me being impatient, I guess. But Arcbound from Dark Horse Comics, yeah, check it out. I thought it was pretty interesting. I don't think you're going to be disappointed.
Cool.
All right, so last but not least, I'll let you go with this one.
It's here.
All right, rock and roll. Yes.
Fine. Yes, rock and roll indeed. So, the highly anticipated G.I. Joe #1 from Sky Brown, the imprint of Image that Robert Kirkman created, really just to get this published, I think, in some ways.
Wait, talking about creators coming on, Robert Kirkman, you are more than welcome. I'll kick John out if you want a full hour of just yourself and me. So I put it out there into the universe. Now, dude, just because this story is just it's unfucking believable. I mean, just a guy who genuinely loves comics in the middle of nowhere, middle America, traveling God knows how long just to get comics, and then making up shit to people so that he could just drive him from the airport to get his foot into the door. Yeah, I'm thinking about Eric Larson. So just listen, a guy who genuinely loves the medium. Dude, you are more than welcome to come on any single time.
And based on his what he has done before, you see what Robert Kirkman loves. He loved the zombie genre. He saw a social message that could be weaved into a tale of zombies about who we are as people, and boom, Walking Dead. He loved.
Listen, that story is fucking crazy as it was, because who was it? Was it Jim Valentino that was publisher at the time?
I think, or president at the time. That
something like that. Yeah. And he pitched it to him, and Jim Valentino says, "No, zombies don't sell." Blah blah. But he says, "Do you know there's UFOs and aliens?" And it's like, "Oh, really? Okay, let's do it." And then when it fucking comes out, there's no aliens at all, but becomes a freaking hit.
A hit.
It's a sleeping hit. So it's crazy. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go back.
I love that part about that too. That he did what he had to do to get that story out there, and I love that he did that, and then even did that story as sort of a Walking Dead what if kind of thing,
yes,
where he got it that big where he could do that, right?
Yes.
So then, and then he loves classic Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, John Romita Sr. Spider-Man, and gave the world Invincible. And even at the point, because again, Invincible's hot now, but Invincible was hot when it came out, and it took everybody by surprise. And he was even able to manage to get Invincible into an issue of Marvel Team Up to team up with Spider-Man, at the time that book was in publication. Yes. And so, so I clearly there's certain things he loves, so it's no surprise being of a certain age. He loves the Hasbro properties of Transformers and GI
Yeah.
Joe, and did the most brilliant thing with releasing this book called Void Rivals. We've talked about this before. This sort of almost like Enemy Mine, that movie, right? With the two
You're dating
aliens
yourself now.
stranded and
But I
on a
love that
planet
movie.
and having to work together. And the big reveal at the end of the first Void Rivals was the first issue was that this is going to tie into the Transformers. And then the Transformers series starts, and in the second issue, something happens, and you see a familiar name tag, and you're like, this is going to lead into G.I. Joe.
Mhm.
And then instead of diving right into a G.I. Joe, they did 4 miniseries. They did a Duke miniseries, they did a Destro miniseries, they did a Cobra Commander miniseries, and they did a Scarlet miniseries. So now all building up, and the Transformers is still running at 13, and Void Rivals, I think, is issue 9 or 10 at this point. I think took a little bit of a break. That's Void Rivals is the one that Kirkman's writing. He's jobbing all these other ones out. So now we have G.I. Joe #1. And first of all, I want to say, if you missed any of the setup before this issue, don't worry. This is a great first issue to just dive into. If you're familiar with classic G.I. Joe, and I don't think there's going to be a lot, because classic G.I. Joe is still running 300 plus issues, written by Larry Hama. Those same characters from 1982, defying time and not really aging, but still playing out the same storylines or continuing those storylines. That's still there, and I don't think that anyone's going to confuse that with this, because this is such a nostalgia blanket. That even if you like that G.I. Joe and you want to see what's going on here, you're going to like this, because this does. And I was thinking about this while reading this. You mentioned Scott Snyder and Bigger Batman, right? Which the second issue just came out. And one of the things that's great about that first issue, especially, is it reads like a very familiar Batman tale, Batman Year One. So you're going in on a story that's familiar in its trappings, but that makes the differences. When the differences pop, they pop, right?
Right.
And this does the same thing. So we're going to get to the credits, because it's written by one of my favorite writers, Joshua Williamson, who wears his love of the characters he works on his sleeve. He's been doing some great stuff over with DC, and I love that he has this opportunity to do this. It is illustrated by Tom Riley, colored by Jordi Belair, lettered by Russ Wooten, and edited by Ben Abernathy. No relation to Clayton Abernathy. And publication design Andre Juarez, and production Ashby Florence. So basically you get your introduction to the Joes. They are on a training mission. They're still trying to pull it together as a team. You get, again, if this is your first time reading this, you get introduced to Cobra, or you get to see now where Cobra is at from the previous miniseries. And then you get the MacGuffin, the thing that they all have to go after or protect, and you get your first confrontation between G.I. Joe and Cobra, and you have a cliffhanger final page that is devastating for certain people like me, who that was my first G.I. Joe action figure, and also got to play with Star Wars figures because of a certain resemblance to a soldier on Endor, but I don't want to go anywhere to spoil anything. So anyway, but you also, what I really love that Josh Williamson has done is he has successfully merged the sensibility and the all quasi-reality of the Larry Hama early G.I. Joe issues, which we talked about a little bit last week, with the ridiculous concepts of the cartoon, and he has merged them and made something that works really well. So if you're just a fan of the old G.I. Joe comics, or you just are a fan of the G.I. Joe cartoon, you're not going to be alienated if you don't like the other, because it takes concepts from the other and weaves them together. It's such a great way. So obviously the big hang up with G.I. Joe, the cartoon, that was different from the comics. In the comics, real bullets, real people got shot, people got killed in early G.I. Joe, even later G.I. Joe, people still die. Like, don't get attached to anybody. Same with this. Do not get attached to anybody. I even want to say that the way that the beginning and the end of this issue are bookended, how you get your descriptions of the people on the team, and how the descriptions of what they say, especially for two of them, you know, shows you get to see that actually be their, happen to them at the end,
Right,
without
right,
a great way, like the thing with the character who can diffuse a situation, and then
right.
what happens to him, and so I loved it. I thought it was so cool. Yeah, their stakes are high. They take something, so they couldn't on the cartoon use bullets, so everyone was firing lasers.
Yeah,
Lasers could blow up ships, but people would have to, we'd have always have a guy in the parachute. Lasers are in play in here.
yep,
It is not the cartoon the way these lasers work. So the stakes are high. Again, Josh Williamson loves these characters, nails these characters. You have familiar characters in familiar situations. You have other characters that, like when one character calls this other character upon seeing him for the first time, he goes, "This man is insane." I was like, yeah, that guy was not that guy in the
yep,
original.
yep.
You really made this guy a great character. And so because he is insane, and it just all works really well. You even get introduced to a new character, I'm guessing, where we just see in that one sort of scene, this guy who's on some mission, gets into a fight, gets called away.
Yes, yes,
I think that's a wholly new character, so I think that's really cool. Yeah, you get familiar characters in different situations, even on different teams.
right.
I couldn't love this more as somebody who grew up with GI Joe, both the cartoon and then discovering the comic,
Right.
and had the toys, and I was an adult kid again reading this. They did a really cool thing too in the back. They did a Kickstarter for the
Yep,
compendiums and stuff.
yep, yep.
So you could either join Team Cobra or Team Joe.
Joe.
And friend of the store, the Joker's Child, and friend in life, writer for the Pop Break.
Hold
His
on,
name's
hold on.
Michael. I don't know if we can get him. Yeah, right there. See right there?
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, Michael,
There you
you
go.
made it onto Team
Nice.
Joe. So a little shout out there to Michael. Yeah, GI Joe, man. I can't wait for more. This is really good. And I haven't read all of I've read most, but not all of the
Right.
other Skybound Energon stuff. But even if I hadn't, like, this book is such a great ride.
Yeah, like you said, you don't have to have that back material in order to enjoy this. And same way, I enjoyed it a lot. However, I've read all the back material and kind of see how everything weaves in, from all the miniseries that we had to Void Rivals actually starting everything off. I mean, from the very first issue of Void Rivals, you had an Autobot / Decepticon that was in the first issue of Void Rivals. So you have that story going on. It's going to be like, this is he's going to play the long play, right, on this one, to find out how this Void Rival universe that's going on somewhere in space is going to somehow catch up to the GI Joe Transformers world, because just the way he's doing it is fantastic. I would love to be in one of their powwow meetings and say, okay, you have Josh Williamson over here who absolutely loves GI Joe, because in the columns letter, he's just writing how much he's loved and grew up with it, had all the toys and wanted to play with the toy box for so long. And now that he has it, he has so many ideas that he wants, but has to play within his universe as well. So he's got the stuff that he wants to play with, but now in his expanded universe. Then you've got Daniel Warren Johnson on the other side with Transformers. Everything that I've read of his has just been great. It's just been hit after hit after hit. And he's a writer who loves to write. And likes to write, even if it's a metal being, there's a sense of humanity in the way that he writes that makes them feel like they can feel things, which is crazy. It could just be me fucking in love with the way that he writes, but there's just a sensibility that he gives to the characters, a voice that makes you believe that they actually feel something. And then you got Robert Kirkman, who's doing the Void Rival section, the master behind this whole Energon universe. I really want to see where the climax is going to be, where all of these characters are in one particular book, because I think the payoff is going to be absolutely wonderful. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, do not get attached to any fucking character, because they can just go. And we saw it in Transformers with Daniel Warren Johnson doing whatever he did to a bunch of these fucking Transformers, and we're seeing it now in GI Joe as well. It's one of these things where the shock value, if it happens too much, is probably going to wear off. I think it's going to be in there sparingly, even though with Transformers and GI Joe, you have a plethora of characters that you can bring in and out. A bunch of characters that you can absolutely kill off for the rest of their lives and still be okay with, the story moving forward. So whatever they got planned, I'm fully on board. I mean, I'm going to be shit out of luck if they have all of these books coming out in the same week every month and stuff like that, because it's just going to be enormous. I think we're done with the minis for now, so I think the main books are Void Rivals, G.I. Joe, and Transformers, building into whatever epic,
The Energon War. That's obviously what it's building.
Oh, yeah. So you talk about the lasers. It's when you get lasers out of nowhere, it doesn't mean anything. But when you get lasers out of fucking what you're building, it makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they've got this alien energy source to fuck around with, and now that becomes the pew 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 that you've seen on G.I. Joe, it gives it so much more meaning in that respects. And I love that Baroness is on the team.
I think it's really cool. That's a cool twist. I like to see where that's going to go.
Yeah, because she's going to end up betraying him.
Or is she? Or is someone else from the one side going to go to that side? Anything is on the table with this, which I think is really cool. Yeah. And like we were talking about how we love it because we have nostalgia for G.I. Joe. I have to say credit to Josh Williamson, because even if you don't give a lick about G.I. Joe, like you don't care and you just want to check this out to see what's going on, you're going to get a really well constructed narrative in a single issue with a cliffhanger. You know how I said like the introductions are bookend to are bookended by what happens to them at the end of the book. Right. There's even like these sort of parallels throughout the narrative too, where you have Hawk talking to Duke, right? Commander talking to the leader of the team, and having that conversation. You that's paired with a conversation between Cobra Commander and Destro, and you see how those dynamics are similar and different. And I love like right in the center of the book with the mission briefing, you literally get at the midpoint, and it's very like that one issue of Watchmen, the way it's constructed, where it's the beginning and end bookend, and they meet in the middle narratively is really cool. So I just a lot of great use of comic as a medium, and using those narrative tricks, those visual tricks, the use of dialogue and sound effects. I mean, it was just I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it is. That's why I'm raving so much. I thought it was just going to be fluff setup, and I'm glad that I didn't know better. I was genuinely surprised while reading it, because it was great. It was really good.
It was good. And I think what Daniel Warren Johnson and Joshua Williams do really well is, and it's not overkill on it, is they find these moments where the characters have sort of like their internal struggle. So you got Duke with a brand new team, and his struggle is, how do I get this team together? And it's not overly whining, but it's a genuine concern about his ability to want everybody to be like him. But yet General Hawk is saying, no, it's got to be about bringing out the best in all these guys. So there's a fucking G.I. Joe message in the fucking book. The more you know kind of shit. And so they have a really, and it's not the entire thing. It's just laid in there where it's a moment of, you've got action, you got all the stuff that could be really entertaining, but then there's depth to the characters that make it a little bit more real, or make that feeling of what you're reading more real and more genuine and want to connect to. And that's what I'm talking about. So these two guys are actually giving a really solid masterclass on how to sprinkle that stuff in to make it both entertaining, yet drawing you in emotionally without you even realizing that you're connecting to the content, because they're talking to each other like they're two fucking human beings, and they're just two characters on paper. So just really solid on that. So Robert Kirkman did a fantastic job in bringing these fantastic creators together to create this universe and vision that you have. I know I'm not going to be disappointed. So yeah, you need to just get on the email and just email me and say, hey, Angel, we're going to be on the show next week so that we can talk everything Energon verse, because that would be fucking fantastic.
You mentioned that the Williamson and Johnson are giving master classes on writing these IPs. Honestly, and Robert Kirkman is giving a master class on managing two of the biggest IPs out there. And the way that he's bringing them together, which had been attempted before in the past, but nothing like this. This is just an amazing, remarkable feat.
Yeah,
years in the making.
Absolutely. And if we look at like how the 90s were, you wanted to bring in, like, especially when Image started, they were doing all the crossovers and then trying to do, what was it, Deathmate?
With Valiant,
no, not Valiant. There was another one that was being done with Image. Oh, I forgot.
I thought it was Image Valiant was Deathmate.
Oh, it was. Yeah, you're right. And I think a couple of issues came out. I don't think the series ever finished,
I think that version of Valiant folded while it was going on.
Yes. So, but here we have, 30 years later, and it's happening once again where, outside of the big two, where you have, you have established IP, obviously, but you have somebody who loves the medium, attaching himself to the IP, being able to get access to the IP, and doing something really phenomenal with it from the very beginning. And it sucks because I told people from the very beginning, dude, it's Robert Kirkman. You're starting with Void Rivals. If you don't read this shit, the other stuff is just going to be like you're going to want to go back and get it. And I know half the people who read G.I. Joe are not going to go back and be like, hey, where are the rest of the issues of Transformers? Where are the single issues of, Destro, Cobra Commander, and Void Rivals? Because it's all done really, really well. All right, I've gone on way too long kissing his ass, but it's just something you guys out there, you really, this is what made me fall in love with comics is stuff like this. Like people that really love the medium, want to tell stories, then surround themselves with people that can help them push out those stories into the world with the art, the color, just to entice us and want more. Dude, I want more. I'll take 10 more fucking books that he does if it's all this quality. So, yeah. All right, cool. That's what we have for you this week. So if you like what you heard, please subscribe to the podcast. Better yet, tell 100 of your friends to come on, and we'll be here every week. And if you know Robert Kirkman, seriously, tell him to come on board. Tell him to get in contact with me. We'd love to have him on. If you're a creator and want to talk about yourself and or projects that you have coming up, just go to amazingactioncomics.com, fill out the form there, and we'll get you on and we'll talk comics. Stay up to date on everything that we've got going on at amazingactioncomics.com. And last but not least, please support your local comic shop, because without them, we would not be able to do what we love to do, and that is read comics and talk comics. John, where do you get your comics from?
Well, I get my comics at The Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. And, I did talk about how we like to keep you up to date as up to date as possible on all the current comics. At The Joker's Child, while we do understand that time travel is a terrible narrative device that causes more problems than it solves, but can still make for interesting stories, we also know that time travel in real life is achievable because of our voluminous selection of back issues. We have a lot of back issues. Take that trip back in time, pick up that comic that you remember reading as a kid at The Joker's Child or at your local comic shop, wherever you are. There's nothing wrong, folks, with going back in time in your memories and having fun, just rereading stuff that you used to have as a kid or something you always wanted to have as a kid. You're an adult now. You can achieve that goal, and you could do that at The Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, or, of course, at your local comic shop.
There you go, guys. You heard it from the horse's mouth. All right, until next time, everyone, please be amazing, stay amazing, and read something amazing.